Kevin Grothy, I appreciate you hanging out with me today to talk about our one of our favorite subjects, sponsorship, and in particular best practice sponsorship. Although there's plenty to be said about terrible practice sponsorship, but we won't be covering that today.
No, but you can learn from terrible. It's what helps formulate best practices.
Yeah. Experience is just a fancy word for I used to do things badly and then I learned.
We've all been there.
Totally.
We could all fake it that maybe we haven't, but the truth of the matter is we've all been there. We've all stubbed our toes. We've all had to overcome. That's the common denominator we have in the sponsorship world, I think. And I think it's what makes it so unique and why I think the community as a whole is so supportive of one another.
Yeah, well said. So I was going to say you can learn from experience or you can borrow other people's experience. But I would say when I first started in sponsorship, there wasn't a whole lot of people to learn from. There were definitely excellent practitioners, but there was nowhere near the number of resources that are out there in the world today.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, thanks in large part to people like you who are here to share all the amazing secrets. And so let me make sure I got this straight. You are VP of sponsorship for Memphis in May International Festival.
That is correct. That's what they tell me. That's what I try to do when I come in every day.
Yeah, I love it. But you also hang out with me and a whole bunch of other sponsorship aficionados at the Sponsorship Collective. And so you wear hat of consultant, coach, and practitioner, which is amazing.
No, I love it. It just speaks to the passion I have for sponsorship. And I love my day-to-day job. And I also love being a part of the Sponsorship Collective and the group of people who are part of it. So I feel very fortunate to have two families that understand the role and the importance of sponsorship.
Love that. So let's kick off with, I know I don't know if survived is the right word, but you're just on the other side of your big events. And so, tell the world about what you do for this amazing festival.
So Memphis in May has been around for over 45 years. We're a nonprofit 501c3, and the impetus behind Memphis in May is there's a series of events throughout the month of May. They all are grandiose in their own nature. So I often joke that while it sounds great from a marketing perspective, from a physical, emotional, logistics standpoint, it is extremely difficult because not only are we doing multiple events, they're major events and they're all in the same location. So we are constantly taking a park, Tomley Park, which is on the banks of the Mississippi River in downtown Memphis, and converting it from the Beale Street Music Festival, which is a big 3-day event that will attract anywhere from 75 to 100,000 people. To 2 weeks later, we're hosting the World Championship Barbecue Cooking Contest, where we'll have anywhere over the years 150 to 200 teams who are trying to not only claim their spot as the world champion, but it also helps Memphis claim our spot as the barbecue capital of the world. And that event will draw 50, 60, 70,000 people in of itself, in addition to those teams. And then we finish it off.
These are two events that
back to back.
I mean, they would be a standalone company.
Oh, very much so.
That, and it's their only event and they make lots of money. And yours are days apart.
Yeah, we literally, as we are taking down stages, we are starting to plot out where teams are going at the same time.
I love that.
So it's like we start on one end of the park and doing one phase, which is tear down, and we're going to the other end of the park and starting the phase for the barbecue contest. And then we just kind of meet in the middle and pass each other, so to speak. I'm oversimplifying it. Our vice president of operations would have a heyday on how simple I'm making his job look. It is anything but simple, and I have so much admiration for what they do from that standpoint. So we do those, and then if that's not enough, we finish the month over Memorial Day weekend with a small little run, a 5K, 10K, half marathon run, which usually attracts 2,000, 2,200 runners. And this past year, they came from 39 different states and 2 foreign countries. So we really have the international flair because we're constantly attracting people from all over the world throughout the month of May.
So for those who are watching this thinking that sounds truly exhausting, you're right. But what you should also know is that we're 48 hours post Memorial Day weekend at the time of this recording.
Right. Yes.
So basically Kevin had like an afternoon to recover, and I was like, hey, can I interview you? Because I really want to hear all about it.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful to do. Like I said, it's part of the passion. It's what we do. Anybody who's in the event business gets it, understands it. It takes a special breed to want to be on the producing side of it. It is a lot more enjoyable to be on the consumer side, which is what I'm ready to take that part on right now.
I love that. So, and so your job is to make sure that you are filled to the brim full of amazing sponsorship opportunities.
Yes. So it is about 20 to 25% of our overall budget is sponsor revenue, which is about 2.2 to 2.3 million annually in sponsor revenue. That's just on the cash side. On some trade deals, and I have a pretty strict philosophy on trade gift and kind deals. We're probably doing easily another $250,000 on that side. And not to digress, but I'll just say this real quickly as it relates to gift in kind or trade deals. I have a hard stance on we are not going to enter into any of those types of deals unless it's a budget relief scenario or something that we would have purchased or would have wanted to do from a programming standpoint. Otherwise, there are always people willing to offer you products like I'll just keep it simple. At our barbecue contest, we had 3 different grill companies want to offer the winning team's grills. Well, I could do that all day long. That doesn't help pay the bills to produce the event itself.
Winning team at a barbecue fest, a grill. Like we're not exactly needed, required, maybe not even, well, I guess it depends on what the grill is, but still, it's like a nice to have done as an in-kind deal to me is a distraction at best and costly at worst. There's still activation and there's still assets that they're going to want. You have to coordinate it. So I'm with you. If it truly offsets a real cost, then, or you can turn it into cash, right? Like maybe you weren't planning on buying media, but you get a great media partner and then you can 10x the value of your title sponsor all day long. But just taking stuff because it's free I'm with you, is counterproductive. So you're doing lots of sponsorship.
Yes.
Tell me what the best, coolest, the most fun activations that you do, because you are set up to have great activations. I've seen the pictures. I'm super jealous. If you like barbecue or bourbon or beer
or music or whatever, we're very fortunate. We get to work with a lot of national brands here at Memphis in May, and because we have a series of events. In some cases, it could be a month-long type of sponsorship, Chris, but most cases it's probably by the event because that's what makes the most sense for them. So, we have different ones. Ones that are kind of hot right now are really in the spirit categories. They are really spending money. They're working with agencies who are trying to help build the brand awareness and put product in people's hands. And so, especially at our music festival where food and beverage is an awful large line item from a budgetary standpoint, those sponsorships are really a win-win all over the place, right? We're going to sell some sort of vodka. We're going to sell some sort of beer, a wine, whatever the case may be. And there's lots of different product categories. And so to have somebody be an official and then have the activation, which I think also helps us with the sales standpoint of it, it is a no-brainer, and one that if the audience is right, that is something you want to do. One thing that we did differently this year, Chris, it's funny because when we first started to diverse ourselves in the spirits, I can remember 12 years ago, we had an exclusive with one spirit across the board, and they decided to walk away. And at the time, the executive team, boards, like, oh my gosh, we're losing our exclusive spirit brand.
Everyone's stressed, and now
everybody's all panicky. And now you look at it is, now, we're like 5 times the revenue, much more offerings. So we're much more from a consumer standpoint, providing what our patrons really want, as opposed to force feeding one thing. And so we went from just having activations to actually selling from their activations, because what we found out was people were waiting in line for a particular product, like a Tito's vodka, and they got in line and then they realized, oh, you don't buy it here, this is just promotional. So we changed it after a couple of years and worked with our bar operator to where it was a quasi bar location and an activation. So it served 2 purposes. And so we've done that for a few years. And then
was this from audience feedback that you were like, we gotta change it?
Yeah. We could tell just by, if you stood there and you were checking out how the activation's going, and you could just see somebody say, you mean I waited 15 minutes in line and maybe I get a sip of a sample, or I want to buy it. I'm here. I got cash.
Ready. Give me a bottle.
And I'm sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, they got cash. We got to figure out a way to capture it. Right. And so that's when we changed it. And then what we did this particular year was we grouped them all together. It just so happened to be with a new event site design. We put all of the activations together. And so we kind of created this oasis of all things bar related. And it really kind of became the hangout. So during the music festival, we have 3 stages that are playing. So, you might have had, Greta Van Fleet playing on one stage, and you might have had like a Charlie Wilson or somebody else playing on another stage. Well, when one stage is wrapping up and you're going to another stage, this is where they went. It was packed in between. It was the place to go. And now that we did it 1 year like that, we see, could we do other things? Is there a way to stream the shows in there? Or if, we're here in Memphis, the Grizzlies had a good year. If they were in the playoffs, do we put a broadcast of their games on, or whatever the case may be, to just keep people in there, because then they're going to keep spending money. Yeah.
So here's what I love about this. You and I hear no question from clients all the time. How do I get people in my exhibit space? How do I get people to talk to my sponsors? And the response is, make them not suck. And how do you make them not suck? Listen to the customer, listen to the attendee. They will tell you. They want to tell you. They want to have a great time. You ask them for feedback, or just listen for feedback. You get it. So then you made the customer experience way better, which is way better for the sponsors.
Absolutely.
Put it in the right spot, give people what they want. And nobody really wants to line up to just hear about a brand. They want to experience it. They want to taste it. They want to understand the brand identity. They want to understand the product. And so you've created what you're describing as this like amazing hangout meeting space, but actually it's just an exhibit hall, but it's a good exhibit hall. And so it becomes the epicenter of your event, which is amazing.
And the thing of it is, it's the revenue generator for us, right? Like once they've already made the decision to buy tickets, the next thing that we want them to do is to spend money on food and beverage. So here we go. We just had made it, quote unquote, sexy to come in and spend your money. Is really what we're doing. As opposed to just coming up to a tent and you're buying a beer or a glass of wine or whatever the case may be. It's those types of scenarios that gets me really excited, where you're really trying to put creativity in it. And sometimes it's not rocket science, like you said, just listening and observing and seeing what consumers are doing. Then you can kind of help pattern, I think, your activations off of that. I often tell sponsors, your product and services. We know our audience and our events. What we need to do is come together to collaborate so that there's the best way for them to mesh together, because then that's what's going to make a successful sponsorship.
Beautifully said. You're the expert on your audience. They're the expert on their brand. They know what actions they want your audience to take, and you know what is reasonable to expect of your audience. Fascinating for those who are watching this, hopefully are not thinking, but what about logo placement in gold, silver, bronze? Because the conversation we're having has nothing to do with going up to a brand saying, here are the assets you want. Trust me. Look at all the awareness. None of the brands you've mentioned today need awareness. No. They want to show off how good their product is in the perfect environment to do so. And so coming at the brands as an expert in your audience, I would argue, I'm sure it also has to do with your sales prowess, but I would argue is the most valuable thing you bring to the brands.
So a lot of these brands already spend thousands upon millions of dollars on advertising, depending on who it is. You take like an Anheuser-Busch or a Coca-Cola or a Ford or whatever the case may be, right? So they have brand identity.
Yes.
They don't need your event for brand identity. Oftentimes, maybe a local business, maybe so, but some of the bigger ones, absolutely not. They have it, and they already are spending money on TV, print, outdoor, radio, right? Now. So then you say, if they're already spending all those types of dollars, what can I bring to the table? Which is very impressive. Here's what we have as event producers that are different than anybody else. We can put consumers, and you get reaction, immediate interaction and reaction from the consumer base. You can't get that from a billboard or even the most creative, funniest television commercial that might be playing on the Super Bowl. That's what we have when we're providing experiences.
It's so interesting to me. Like, this is what I love about sponsorship. Exactly what you're describing. And why I have so much respect and appreciation for your approach. This is the magic of sponsorship. But then we see people enter the sponsorship game and immediately try to convert this incredible thing, sponsorship, into impression-based advertising. And as you just said, if brands want to just buy an ad, they'll just buy an ad.
They could do it a lot cheaper than they could for the sponsor itself, right? No question. Because they're buying it in such huge amounts that there's no way from a per impression that you can compete.
But what print, radio, billboard, TV cannot do is have somebody walk into a space and see this incredible display of Jim Beam or Bullet Bourbon or whomever, and then see people that look like them, act like them, think like them, with this incredible music, with their friends, and they put a drink in their hand and taste it and experience something they hadn't experienced before. Like, that is, to me, this is real marketing, what we're describing.
And I think it's become more important because I think people are less brand loyal than they used to be. Because I think there's so many options, right? And so we're getting bombarded. So that doesn't mean you might not have your favorite bourbon or a favorite restaurant or whatever the case may be, but you're open to trying, and what they're hoping to do in this niche market that we live in, whether it's media outlets or brands or services, it's so specialized. They're hoping to crack the door open a little bit to see if you're open and receptive. And you're like, oh, that Tito's is pretty good. Whatever. Stella
My favorite
Rosa,
brand of sipping bourbon, Neat, is not my favorite brand of bourbon in an old fashioned. They're not the same. And how do I know this? Through lots of experience and trial and error. And so So to your point, it's not necessarily about brand, not exclusively about brand. And you have a delivery mechanism as a sponsorship property that really no one else does. Very, very few. The brand could run its own music and rib festival, but that would be massively more expensive than just sponsoring you when you've already got the 7,500 plus thousand people, not to mention your database, your media partnerships, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely.
So, love all of this. And so can you pick the one activation? Do you have one that you're like, this is the one that I love more than all the others?
I don't know if I can say that I love it more than any others. But here's one that I thought was extremely creative, and it's been a while since it was out and about, but it was with BP oil, and it was centered around the gas stations themselves, right? And the agency created this experience where they were trying to differentiate the different grades of gasoline.
Wow.
Boring, right?
Yeah. I can't wait to hear the details. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me, oh, why should I spend 10 cents more? Right.
Yeah.
But here's where the creative part came into. Along with that was a restroom trailer decked out, branded BP, that was sparkling clean.
Ooh,
that you don't get at large festivals because we're in the porta potty business, right? Because that's the only way you can do it.
Yeah.
So as you're waiting to use their nice restrooms that were air conditioned and with running water and all the things that you don't see at a large festival, you're getting a little spill on the BP credit card and the different fuel grades that they have.
Yeah.
The bigger
also
message,
making the connection to cleanliness and spotlessness.
I was just gonna say, their biggest point, you hit it right on the head, Chris, is when people are traveling, they pull off the interstate or whatever, and there's usually 3 or 4 options. They know that people tend to go to the one that looks the safest and the cleanest.
Yeah.
Especially if you're traveling with, your wife. If you're a male and you're, if it's a female, that's even more important to them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I can remember traveling and my wife would say, let's go over here. Let's go to this one.
Yep.
And they purposely were trying to get you to think BP has clean restrooms so that when you're traveling, you're stopped. If you're going to stop to go there for the restroom, maybe you get gas, maybe you buy a Coke, maybe you buy a hot dog, whatever it is, a bag of chips. The incremental behind it I thought was brilliant and not your normal
That's brilliant
type of activation. So like I said, I don't know if it's my favorite, but I thought it was really one of the more genius activation ideas that I've seen.
Well, my wife Jasmine and I, we like to head back to where we went to university and reminisce usually once a year. And there's the stop that is exactly the halfway point. It's about a 3.5 hour drive. Jasmine will not get out of the car to use the washroom there. Just like, I'm good. I'll wait till Tim Hortons at the next town. Like I'm good. I go in and endure it. But yeah, to your point, if they opened another gas station across the street, they would be millionaires overnight just because of the state of the facilities in this one gas station.
Absolutely.
So I love all this. And so somebody asked me once, let's talk about our clients here at the Sponsorship Collective. So one of our shared clients asked me once not long ago, should I really be sending fulfillment reports to the small sponsors, like the $5,000-$6,000 sponsors, and which for them would be in the very small category, or is it a waste of time? And I said, well, you should only send a fulfillment report to those sponsors that you want to become $100,000 sponsors. Everyone else, feel free to ignore. They said, well, how do I know which sponsors have the potential to be 100,000? I said, that is exactly my point. Going out and finding a brand new $100,000 sponsor you've never done business with, or $1 million sponsor, versus treating people who have given you money like special guests, like VIP, and moving them up. I know where I would put my effort. And so I think you and I share a common philosophy about how we treat sponsors regardless of their size. And so So talk, I mean, obviously you're
Yeah.
very good in the big sponsor space, but talk to me about that.
No, I think it's very important that your lower level sponsors feel like they are getting just as much of attention
Mm,
as your larger ones. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to get all of the same benefits,
yeah.
but when it comes to communicating and servicing them, you
Yeah.
take it just as serious
Mm,
as you would a six-figure presenting title type sponsor.
so good.
That's the way I think you got to do that. And you never know where it might land. And I've got a great story that I want to share with you, Chris. There was a credit union, and
Mm,
this was probably 7, 8 years ago.
mhm.
And this credit union, had been around Memphis for a long period of time, and it was really a teachers credit union, and they even had that in their name. So when I first got the job here, I got them on board, and they were helping support some of our education initiatives because it made sense
Yep.
because of being a teachers credit union. Uh, we had been doing that for 3 or 4 years. Went in, there had been some leadership changes there, had gone in, they had recommitted. But while I'm sitting in the CEO's office with the vice president of marketing, the CEO made an interesting comment that caught my mind. He goes, "This will probably be the last year we support your education program."
Mm,
I said, "Well, why is that, may I ask?" And he said, "Well, we're going to go through a rebranding. We want to be more than just a teachers credit union. We don't know what our name is going to be. We don't have a logo, nothing, but we're going to be changing that
mm.
here in the next 6 months. So that's okay that we are doing your education program. But in about 6 months, we're going to have a whole new campaign." And I said, "Really? Well, tell me more about your vision." And he went on to tell me, what he really liked. And as I also dug into it, I found out he was also a big music lover,
Mm.
and not like the big name music. Like, he was one of those music aficionados. He'll look at a lineup of music bands, and it might be the sixth one down, and he's like, "Oh, I really like that type of band for whatever reason," right?
And if I may
So
just say, I was just in Tennessee not long ago, which I recognize is not the same as Memphis, but every single person I spoke to in Nashville, every single person is in a band or used to
oh
be in a
yeah,
band or is related to music in some way. I like that it's in the blood of it seems people in your state, this love of music. So it's not just a
yeah.
casual, when you
Oh
say
no.
this is a music fan, it's unlikely that he just listens every so often.
Right, right.
So yeah,
Probably was in a band at one time and all that kind of good stuff,
yeah,
right? And he goes and travels to different music events across the country. That's just one of his hobbies.
yeah.
So as they were getting ready to rebrand, and they really wanted to portray themselves in a totally different light,
Mhm.
I said, "This might be a stretch, but the timing of when you're coming out with your new name is going to be in the springtime. That's about the time we announce our music lineup. Would you ever entertain being a stage sponsor at our music festival?
Brilliant.
And we can help you with the launch of your new brand." And he looked at it, he says, "Yeah, I'll take a look at that."
Amazing.
And so I took everything that he said, I'm shortening this, took everything that he was telling me in that meeting, put something together to help with the launch of it. Again, not even knowing what the name was going to be or the logo. Like, we got the logo just as we're getting ready to go to production on a lot of the collateral materials for the announcement lineup, right? Because they were having their own
Yeah.
internal struggles.
Another call out to your amazing operations team, being able to handle
Yeah.
those kind of deadlines.
Yes.
Yep.
So, I'm like, just give us 24 more hours, folks. We're going to get it to you. When you plug in everybody else, we got this last one.
Yeah.
And I mean, they did a multiple year deal as a stage presenting sponsor of our Beale Street Music Festival as a way to launch. And I have used that on several occasions as an example, as other people are rebranding. They might not be going through a total rename
Yeah.
change, but even if they're going through a rebrand,
Yeah.
here's an example of how you could use the festival as a way to help launch and
Yeah.
leverage that. So here was somebody who was less than 10,000 and ended up being 100,000.
Like the lessons from this to me. So you have a quote small is relative. So certainly
Right.
on the smaller side for your property, you have a sponsor who is thinking of moving on.
Mm-hmm.
Had you not done proper fulfillment, had you not done like fulfillment reports or meetings, had you not actually spoken to them, many people are like, oh, they're small sponsors a year, they're here every year, I'll just send them a proposal, they sign on for the next year, and then one day they're just gone.
Mm-hmm.
You actually heard from them that they were planning on leaving, which gave you an opportunity to ask them why and see if you could help them, see if you could provide. Sales to me is service. It is purely about offering someone value, right? All the person has to do is say no. And if it doesn't provide value, so you offer them this new thing. So not only do you keep the sponsor, but you help them achieve their goals. You probably gave the CEO an experience of their lifetime, and also you got to level them up. And so ignore your so-called small sponsors at your peril, in my opinion.
I agree. Our president couldn't believe it. He's like, you mean you took this credit union?
Yeah. Could you do that with all of our sponsors?
Yeah, that's right. How many other $5,000 sponsors do we have that we can bump up
budget
50-fold?
Your budget expectation 10x's overnight.
And that's part of also just being the right place, right time. I'm not going to lie. I'm sure they just had, but
yeah, but if you don't show up, you don't get lucky.
You sometimes you do have to be at the right place at the right time, but you got to make that happen too.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of both off of that. Yeah. And I think the good people in this profession are great opportunists.
Yeah, agreed.
And they help create their opportunities, because if you're having that constant dialogue, you're going to be aware of when those opportunities do arise.
Yeah, I love that. So you and I work together at the Sponsorship Collective. We work with lots and lots and lots of clients every day, week, month, and year. What are some of the common errors, the common things that you see people either getting wrong, or the things that when people get right, that's when things start to click?
Yeah, the aha moments for them. Yeah. It's like, the light bulb finally went off, that all these 6 dots that they've been seeing in front of them start to connect. Yeah. And it creates an image. I think at times they overcomplicate the process, overthink it. It's a football coach often talks about, you can have all these fancy plays and put people in motion and stuff, but at the end of the day, it's still about blocking and tackling, right? And yardage. I think, so I think be really good at the basics. The fancy stuff will kind of come and will grow with you as you develop. And then the other thing that I would say is, if somebody's considering it, consider it just like you would a sponsor. You're making an investment for whatever property you would be representing or potentially own, and in yourself as an individual. Okay. So first you make that decision to do it. That's no different than a sponsor who comes to the event and says, we want to sponsor your event. We've made the commitment to it. Right. The second phase of it is, how dedicated are you in the investment you made? And so for a sponsor, we're always looking for them. If they're really going to be active, they're going to have to spend money on the activation. They spent money on the fee. That's to leverage assets. Now they have to spend money on the activation. So in this particular instance, you spent money to join the collective. Now you have to invest. And then in this particular case, it's not about investing more money, but the time and energy to really get what you just paid for. You could just go through the motions. That would be like somebody who's got a 10 by 10 tent. They set a table up and they sit behind there and they just wait for people to come up there. And then they can't understand why nobody came and registered or they saw anybody. That would be the same as signing up for the collective, maybe watching a few modules, but not really participating. and expecting you're going to have the same outcome as somebody who might have spent, thousands of dollars on an activation to engage people.
Yeah.
So that would be the other thing that I think, Chris, is really important. You're going to get out of it what you put into it, just like we would tell our own sponsors at our properties.
Yeah, just slap a bunch of logos on stuff. You're not going to get much out of it. One of my favorite movies, The Matrix, there's a scene where someone says to Neo, I can show you the door, but it's you who has to open it. And so, this makes me think of a lot of what we do when we're advising clients. Like, here's the path, but you're the one that has to walk the path. And the process is keep it simple. Talk to your sponsors like they're people. Come talk to them like a partner, not begging them for money. Like, no. You're the expert in audience, they're the expert in product. How can you help them achieve their goals?
So if you think about it, if you're the property and you have a sponsor and you are providing assets and they're not leveraging them, that is frustrating, right? Yes. You're thinking, oh my gosh,
very frustrating.
You could have this, you could be doing this. Because
the case studies, that it works.
It works.
If only they try.
Yeah. And the same holds true in this particular case. We have clients who have been extremely successful, who have really invested and put in their time and really found out it wasn't as hard as they thought it was.
Yeah.
And then we have those who are kind of on the sidelines, just, I think, expecting it to just drop out of the sky for them.
Yeah.
And we're sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, it's right here for you.
Yes.
Just take advantage of what's available for you.
We can see how close they are.
Yeah.
But they can't. So they think they're 100 miles away. And we know they're sometimes literally one survey away to their audience to unlocking the keys to the kingdom.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And you got to be persistent. I mean, I call it the PP approach, pleasantly persistent. And whether it's calling upon the client, the prospect, or in this case, you got to just be persistent with the program itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of my thoughts on the program and how people, I think, can take advantage of it. And those who have flourished. Yeah. I mean, it's just, it marvels all of us like, oh my gosh, that in 90 days, you could see somebody going from here to all the way over here in 90 days.
We just saw somebody post a win today that they got an additional 28 million media impressions. We're like, what? It's amazing. I mean, I knew he would do well, but like, that's almost as many impressions as people who live in my country. That's not small.
No. And another thing that I think sometimes people get intimidated, and even in this broadcast, as we talk about, a small $5,000 or $10,000 person, whatever, and somebody's like, well, I'd just be happy with $500 or $1,000. One of the things I also always say is, when you're starting out in this, or even if you're rebooting or whatever the case may be, don't pay attention to the dollars.
Yeah.
Pay attention to the process.
Yes.
Because the process is the same, whether you're trying to get somebody for $500, $5,000, or $500,000. The process is 100% the same.
You're like, I only want a couple thousand bucks. That should be easy. No, it's going to be just as hard, and you won't be profitable. That's the difference.
Yes.
So like, it's not actually easier, and your life sucks. Because you don't hit your goal, you don't have any money.
No.
And the other thing is too, is $1,000 sponsorship really that exciting to a brand when we're talking about a $70 billion a year industry?
Yeah.
That's a good point. What kind of impact can you really have for a couple $1,000? So even asking for a small amount actually just might make your opportunity look cheap.
Yeah.
Ask for a premium amount and you might attract more brands.
That's right. The other, as we're talking about maybe hurdles that, and it's not always mistakes, but hurdles that people have to overcome is, and I think this is a pretty common mistake. And I think one of the things that we try to help the clients overcome is you're probably not going to get to the CEO of a major corporation right away. Yeah. You're probably not going to get to a CMO or a VP or even an assistant VP, depending on how many layers are in the onion, right? Yeah. I always contend that you should always look for a champion. And it's probably easier to find a champion closer to home. Again, I was in sports for a while, so I use sports analogies. When you hear a coach talk on the college level, he or she usually talks about controlling the recruiting base close to home and then expanding out. Look at it the same way.
Yeah.
Find you a champion on a local level, and then it can grow in there. And I have the perfect example, and I posted it on the Facebook page with Home Depot. Started out, again, relatively small. I think they started out at $7,500.
Yep.
We found a little niche. They were sponsoring a best booth contest and at our barbecue, because these teams really do spend a lot of money on lumber and plants and nails and bolts and all that kind of good stuff, right? And so we had done the deal for a while, and they were trying to build out a little display, and it was just so labor intensive for the local team to do. So the district manager and I had a conversation, and he says, "Hey, can you help me if I can bring in like my boss to come check this thing out and see the investment of what this thing could be? Would you help me entertain them for a few hours and what have you not?" So we did. Long story short, this thing started growing to this year where we had 10 people from the marketing team of Home Depot corporate, vice president. We had top level executives flying in on their private planes to come check out this event. And they probably had vendors. I mean, they had all of their big grill vendors, fire pits, charcoal, 2 or 3 different kinds of charcoal, all of that. They built this outdoor experience because they saw this as a prototype, and all these people wanted to come in and see it. And it just was enormously successful. Started with just the local store. And now I'm getting LinkedIn requests from vice president over all of the outdoor channels. I mean, it's just amazing how it can go if you start and find you a champion and then just work your way. You might have to be patient. It didn't happen after a year or two. You know, this is probably year 8, 9, 10. But we've tenfolded the fee. And while they were there, they were trying to figure out, well, I want that space over here and that space over there. And I'm like, we can make that happen. You know, it's like music to my ears.
When you think about it, it's like, how hard is it to actually meet the manager of your local Home Depot?
No,
it's not that hard. Whether you walk into the store and say, I'd like to speak to the manager and hard pitch them, it's probably not the best approach.
No,
but it's not hard to find them, and it's not hard to connect with them. Versus, I'm going to go get the chief marketing officer for Home Depot on the phone tomorrow. Like, well, if they answer, it's probably not going to be a very fun conversation for you, let alone the likelihood that you'll even get them on the phone.
It would be rather short if you even got them to pick up by mistake.
Correct. But you go this route of like, you build a champion, and then it becomes an example of best case sponsorship that they share within. And next thing you know, everyone's coming from all over the country to see your activation. And now you have a multi-year deal.
Now, you want to know who's the happiest out of all of it? Not me, the local manager, because he was supplying all this labor and material, and he's like pulling people out of the store. And in today's world, where labor is at such a premium to run these big box retail stores, they turned it over to corporate, and they brought in a company that does their big show in Vegas for all of the store managers. That's who they brought in to produce their activation. They spent $150,000 to $200,000 on the activation, and all these vendors probably sent in. There was at least 30 to 40 pallets of product that they shipped in on behalf of Home Depot, because it was Home Depot. People that I was calling on before that maybe would pay attention, or some wouldn't even return my phone call. But Home Depot says, hey, be a part of this. Bam, they're there.
Brilliant. And so now people see this activation today and think, like people in the sponsorship community, oh, he's lucky, he's got it easy. You know, oh, they must know, they know someone who knows someone. I wish I had that. How do I get that? The answer is Kevin did the stuff every day that most people don't want to do, right? You picked up the phone, you walked into a store, you networked, you met someone, you paid attention to them and treated them well, and slowly moved them up the ladder to now this brilliant partnership that you've created. And it all goes back to your advice. Like, if you treat all of your sponsors incredibly well and listen to your audience, you have the makings of a best in class sponsorship opportunity.
Yep. Whether it's taking somebody, whether you have a smaller event and whatever your level is, you can still work them up. I mean, again, the process is still the same, Chris.
Love it. So my last question for you, Kevin. I know you have, unlike me, you actually have important things to do and I like a job that keeps you busy, and I just hang out and talk to people on the internet. So you've got someone who's interested in coming and working with us at the Sponsorship Collective as a client. They're holding off, they're nervous, they're afraid. What's your best advice to them if they're thinking, I want to take action, but I'm not sure if I'm ready?
I think what they need to ask themselves is, am I ready to invest? You got to look at this as an investment.
Yeah.
Pure investment. And it's not a shot in the dark. Oh, let me hope. Yes. Like you might hire, somebody on a commission base and they say, oh, I can bring you this book. This collective, there are so many examples of people who have succeeded through the program, that you have to trust the process. And again, it's not an overly complicated one. Sponsorship sales is not easy. I'm not going to say just because you sign on it gets easy. Right. Yeah. And I think the collective really helps drill it down, because sometimes it can be overwhelming, right? Like if you have a budget, if it's 50,000 or 5 million and you're thinking, oh my gosh, well, you're not going to get there with one sponsor. You have to, it's like the big elephant, right? And taking bites out of it. I would say, make the decision to invest not only in the sponsorship collaborative, but also your time and energy and willingness to learn. And you will, not only will you learn, you are going to make some incredible networking peers throughout the world. And to me, that has been, as I have progressed in my career, I'm going to be going on year 18 here at Memphis in May. And so over the years, I have built up a network of people that when you run into a stumbling block, that you can call on, or if you're not really sure, or just to gauge, hey, how are sales? How are things trending for you? You have peers that you can go to. And that's the other thing that I think is just so amazing, is that that the networking opportunities that are available. And there are people who pay huge money just to go to a conference to hope to meet some people. Right.
For just a couple days. Never mind flight, and downtime, hotels.
And you're hoping you run into them.
Here
they're brought in together for you. So it really, to me, it's a smart investment. You just have to make the decision to make the investment. Once you do it, you won't regret it.
And if you're not ready to invest in the growth of your sponsorship program, we have so many free resources that we create, like you, Kevin, sitting down and talking to me today about this. This is to improve the industry, full stop. So if you're a hobbyist or dabble away. We have tons of resources for you. But if and when you're ready to commit to taking your opportunity to the next level, then waiting is not in your favor.
The same challenges are going to be there.
That's right.
I mean, they're not going to go away.
More time goes by.
And no, I mean, like I've been here 17 years. The challenges are not any easier today. I'm just probably a little more seasoned and know what to look for in the process. I have the process down better. But the end game, everything about it is still the same as it was back then. So technology has changed, but it still comes down to the same.
Still people. It's still a people process.
It's all about some customer service and communication.
Kevin, I appreciate it. It's always fun to hang out and geek out over sponsorship. I really appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out with me today.
My pleasure. It was a lot of fun. We'll do it again.
Absolutely.